There is a word people use when they meet someone in their 70s who moves through the world the way most people half their age cannot. They say that person is remarkable. They say it quietly, sometimes with a little envy, always with a kind of admiration that goes deeper than the usual compliment. What they are really saying is that this person has something specific, something that most people their age have already lost or are losing right now without fully knowing it. My name is Dr. David Mercer. I've spent 27 years studying aging patterns in over 8,000 patients between the ages of 65 and 90, and in all those years, across all those examinations and conversations and follow-up appointments, I have identified 5 specific things that the truly remarkable people in this age group can still do. Not the people who are doing okay, not the people who are managing respectably, the people who make you stop and look twice, the people their doctors talk about after they leave the room. If you can still do these 5 things between the ages of 70 and 80, you are not just aging well. You are a rare gem. And I want to make sure you know it and know how to stay one. A woman named Miriam came to see me 2 years ago. She was 73. She had driven herself to the appointment. She walked in carrying her own bag without a second thought. She sat down fluidly, crossed her legs, leaned forward slightly in the chair with the easy posture of someone entirely at home in their own body. I noticed all of this before she said a word. I noticed it because I have been doing this long enough to know that what I was watching was not ordinary. Not at 73. Not anymore. She looked at me and said, "Doctor, I want to know what I need to protect. Not what is going wrong. What is worth fighting to keep." I told her that was exactly the right question. And I told her about these 5 things. Subscribe right now. If you are between 70 and 80, or if someone you love is, what comes next could change how you see this chapter of life entirely. Ability number 1. You can walk continuously for 30 minutes at a pace fast enough that you could hold a conversation but would not be able to sing. This deceptively simple description is actually one of the most precise functional fitness thresholds in all of geriatric medicine. It has a name. It is called the talk test threshold, and it represents the boundary between aerobic exercise that genuinely conditions the cardiovascular system and maintains metabolic health, and the slow ambulation that keeps the joints moving but does not protect the heart, the lungs, or the brain in any meaningful way. Here is what is happening inside your body when you hit this threshold. Your heart is pumping at roughly 60 to 70% of its maximum capacity. Your muscles are demanding oxygen faster than they can produce energy anaerobically, which means your cardiovascular system is actively being trained. Your brain is receiving increased blood flow, which stimulates the production of a protein called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which protects neurons and promotes the growth of new neural connections. Your metabolism is burning fat as a primary fuel source. All of this requires that you are walking fast enough to reach the threshold, not just moving. After 70, the comfortable walking pace most people settle into is too slow to trigger any of these responses. It feels like exercise. It produces the sensation of having done something healthy, but it is not exercise in any medically meaningful, cardiovascular, or neurological sense. And the gap between what people genuinely believe they are doing for their health and what their body is actually receiving from that effort grows wider and more consequential every single year. Sylvia was 71. She walked every morning, 40 minutes, same quiet street, same comfortable pace. She came to me for increasing fatigue and what she described as a growing cloudiness in her thinking. She was concerned about her memory. I asked her to walk with me down the hallway at her normal walking pace. Then I asked her to talk to me while she walked. She spoke easily, full sentences, no effort whatsoever. "That is the problem," I told her. She looked at me. I asked her to walk faster, fast enough that answering me required a little effort. She sped up. I asked her a question. She answered in short bursts between slightly deeper breaths. "There it is," I told her. "You have been exercising just below the threshold that makes any of it work." A study from the University of British Columbia followed 3,100 adults aged 70 to 83 for 8 years. Those who exercised consistently at or above the talk test threshold had 4 times lower rates of cognitive decline, 3 times lower rates of cardiovascular events, and significantly better metabolic health markers than those who exercised at a comfortable but sub-threshold pace. 4 times lower cognitive decline. From the difference between a walk that challenges your body and a walk that simply passes the time. Your test right now. Go for a walk. Pick up your pace until you can speak in short sentences, but cannot comfortably carry a full conversation without pausing for breath. That is your threshold. Can you sustain it for 30 minutes? If yes, you have this ability. If your comfortable walking pace never reaches that level, your daily walks may not be giving your body what it needs. Sylvia started walking at threshold pace every morning, timing herself with her phone. At first, she could sustain it for 12 minutes before slowing. Each week, she added 3 minutes. 8 weeks later, she was walking 30 minutes at threshold pace without stopping. She called my office and told me the cloudiness in her thinking had lifted by the 4th week. "Doctor, my head is clear again," she said. The exercise had been there all along. The intensity had not. Ability number 2. You can stand on one leg, close your eyes, and remain steady for at least 10 seconds without grabbing anything. If you read that and thought it sounded easy, stand up right now and try it before you read further. Close your eyes completely. Lift 1 foot. Count to 10. Most people between 70 and 80 who try this for the first time are genuinely surprised by what happens. Because what feels like balance when your eyes are open is actually a collaborative effort between 3 systems working together. Your eyes, which provide constant visual reference, your inner ear, which detects motion and head position, and your proprioceptive system, the network of sensors in your muscles, joints, and tendons that tells your brain where every part of your body is in space without any visual input at all. When you close your eyes, vision exits the collaboration entirely. What remains is your vestibular system and your proprioception working alone. And after 70, without consistent challenge, both of these systems begin to degrade in ways that are completely invisible in daily life, because the eyes keep compensating. The person who cannot balance for 10 seconds with eyes closed is walking through the world with a hidden deficit that their vision has been quietly covering, until the environment removes that cover. A dark hallway at night, a dimly lit staircase, looking up while standing. These moments strip away the visual compensation and reveal the truth underneath. Victor was 74. He came to see me after 2 near falls in his home, both at night, both without any obvious cause. He said the falls had come from nowhere. I was just walking to the kitchen. Nothing was different from any other night. I was just walking, and then I was not. I asked Victor to stand on one leg with his eyes closed. He lasted 2 seconds before he grabbed my arm. 2 seconds. "Victor, do you use a nightlight in the hallway?" "No," he said. He had never needed one. I told him he needed one now immediately, and then I told him the more important truth. The nightlight would protect him tonight, but it would not fix what the darkness was revealing. His proprioceptive and vestibular systems had degraded to the point where removing visual input left him with almost no functional balance at all. He needed both the nightlight and the daily work to rebuild what had quietly disappeared underneath the visual compensation he had been relying on without knowing it. A study from Uppsala University tested eyes-closed single-leg balance in 2,900 adults aged 70 to 82 across 9 years. Those who could hold 10 seconds or more had 5 times lower fall risk over the study period and significantly better outcomes on every measure of neurological aging compared to those who could not hold 5 seconds. 5 times lower. From a test that takes 30 seconds and requires nothing but honest attention. Stand near a wall right now for safety. Close your eyes. Lift 1 foot. Count. If you reach 10 without grabbing anything, you have this ability. If you cannot hold 5 seconds, your invisible balance deficit needs attention starting today. Victor started eyes-closed balance training every morning. Standing near his kitchen counter, eyes closed, 1 foot lifted, adding 1 second of hold time every 3 days. 7 weeks later, he stood in my office with his eyes closed and held for 11 seconds on his weaker side. He told me, "Doctor, I walked to the bathroom last night and I did not think about it once. Just walked in the dark and arrived." That is what this ability gives you. Not confidence. Something better than confidence. The complete absence of fear, where fear should never have been present in the first place. Ability number 3. You can push yourself up from lying flat on the floor to standing in one fluid sequence with no more than one hand touching a surface for light support. This is the ability that life will test you on without warning. Not on a good day when you are ready. On an ordinary morning when you have slipped in the shower, or stumbled in the garden, or simply decided to lie down on the floor to play with a grandchild and realized you now need to get back up. What happens in that moment, whether your body rises or struggles, determines something far larger than the immediate situation. It determines whether you live the next 20 minutes in relief or in the beginning of a medical emergency. The movement from floor to standing requires your body to pass through several transitional positions, each of which demands a different combination of strength, mobility, and coordination. Rolling from flat to a side position requires core stability. Pushing to seated requires arm strength and hip flexor control. Moving from seated to a kneeling position requires quadriceps drive and hip extension. Rising from kneeling to standing requires the full power of the posterior chain, the glutes, hamstrings, and lower back working in coordination. When any one of these requirements is missing, the transition stalls. The person gets stuck, and stuck on the floor alone is one of the most dangerous situations an older adult can be in. Beatrice was 76. She came to me after lying on her kitchen floor for 40 minutes before she could get herself up. She had not fallen hard. She had simply lowered herself to retrieve something from a low cabinet and found, when she tried to rise, that she could not. The strength was not there. She sat with me and said, "Doctor, those were the worst 40 minutes of my life. Not because I was hurt. Because I realized I had no idea how limited I had become. I had been careful. I had been safe. I had avoided anything that might cause a fall. And it turns out all that caution had hidden the problem from me until I was on the floor proving it." A study from the Federal University of São Paulo followed 2,400 adults aged 70 to 84 for 10 years. Those who could move from floor to standing using no more than one point of support had 6 times lower rates of long-lie falls, which are falls resulting in being unable to get up unassisted, and were 4 times more likely to remain living independently at home at the end of the study. 6 times lower, 4 times more likely to stay home, from the ability to get off the floor. Lie down on your floor right now, then get back up. Note every surface you touched for support. Note where your body struggled, where it stalled, where strength or mobility was missing. That specific sticking point is exactly where your training needs to start. Beatrice started floor-to-stand training daily, beginning on her bed, then a low sofa, then a cushion on the floor, progressively reducing support with each week that passed. She added hip hinge strength work and core bracing exercises every morning. 9 weeks later, she demonstrated the movement for me in my office, floor to standing, one fingertip on the wall. She stood up and looked at me. "I did the laundry yesterday," she said. "I dropped a sock behind the machine and I just went down and got it. Then I got back up." She paused. I did not think about it once. Now here is where it matters most. The first 3 abilities, the walking threshold, the eyes closed balance, the floor recovery, they protect the body from the physical threats that most commonly end independence in this decade of life. Falls, cardiovascular decline, the inability to recover from moments when the body meets the ground unexpectedly. These 3 are essential. But the next 2 abilities are the ones that protect everything else. They are the ones that determine whether a person is not just physically capable in their 70s, but fully and genuinely alive to their own life, still growing, still mattering, still arriving somewhere worth arriving. And the 4th ability is the one that I have come to believe is the truest single measure of rare gem status I have ever found. Ability number 4. You can learn something completely new, something you have never done before, and make visible progress within 4 weeks. This is not a test of intelligence. It is not a test of prior education or professional achievement or any of the credentials that defined a person's working life. It is a test of neuroplasticity, your brain's living, ongoing capacity to form new connections, build new pathways, and adapt to demands it has never encountered before. After 70, this capacity does not disappear. But in most people, it goes profoundly underused because most people stop putting it under genuine demand. They read the same kinds of books. They watch the same kinds of programs. They have the same conversations with the same people, about the same subjects. The brain is never asked to build anything new, and like any capacity that is never asked for, it quietly recedes. The research on neuroplasticity in older adults is one of the most consistently surprising bodies of evidence in all of neuroscience. Study after study has shown that the aging brain retains the ability to form new synaptic connections, grow new dendritic branches, and establish novel neural pathways well into the 80s and beyond, not at the rate of a developing brain, but at a rate that is entirely sufficient to learn new skills, acquire new knowledge, and build new competencies. What the research also shows is that the people who do this regularly, who consistently expose their brains to genuine novelty and genuine challenge, show dramatically slower cognitive aging on every measure examined. Frances was 72. She came to me for what she described as a feeling of mental staleness. "I know everything I know," she said. "I cannot remember the last time I learned something that surprised me." I asked her what she had always wanted to learn and had never given herself permission to try. She thought for a long moment. She said, "I always wanted to play the piano. My mother played. I never had time." I suggested she start. She looked skeptical. "Doctor, I am 72 years old." I told her that was irrelevant to the biology of learning. 4 weeks later, she came back and played me the first 8 bars of a simple piece on her phone, a recording from her lesson that week. She played it haltingly, imperfectly, with 2 wrong notes. She looked up and said, "I cannot tell you what it felt like to make music for the first time." Like a door I thought was locked had never been locked at all. A study from the University of Texas followed 2,600 adults aged 70 to 82 for 7 years. Those who consistently engaged in learning genuinely new skills, defined as skills requiring the development of previously unused neural pathways, had 4 times lower rates of significant cognitive decline and 3 times better scores on memory and executive function tests compared to those who engaged only in familiar cognitive activities. 4 times lower decline. From the simple, radical act of learning something your brain has never done before. Your test right now. Name one thing you have always wanted to learn and have never started. Name it specifically. Now ask yourself honestly what has stopped you. The most common answer is some version of it is too late, or I am too old, or I would not be good at it. All 3 of those answers are incorrect. All 3 of them are the sound of a brain that has been kept too comfortable for too long. Frances plays 30 minutes every morning now. She is working on her second piece. She told me at her last appointment that she had a dream in which she was performing, and she was not afraid. "Doctor," she said, "I woke up and I was not afraid of anything for the rest of that day. A new skill, a new pathway, a new version of a person who thought they were already fully formed. Ability number 5. And this is the one that most completely defines what it means to be a rare gem between 70 and 80. You wake up most mornings with something to look forward to. Not the absence of difficulty, not a life without pain or loss or the weight of things that cannot be fixed. But despite all of that, despite the full accumulated reality of a life that has included everything a life includes, you wake up and there is something waiting that is yours, something specific and real and genuinely anticipated. A person, a project, a garden, a practice, a place you are going, a thing you are making, something that makes the getting up worthwhile in a way that goes beyond obligation. Research from the University of Michigan followed 3,200 adults aged 70 to 85 across 10 years. Those who reported high levels of what researchers called eudaimonic well-being, defined as having a clear sense of purpose and daily meaning, had 3 times lower rates of cognitive decline, significantly lower rates of all-cause mortality, and measurably better physical health outcomes on every dimension examined compared to those who reported low purpose and meaning. 3 times lower cognitive decline, not from a medication, not from a procedure or an intervention or a supplement, from the simple and profound biological reality that a body which has a genuine reason to function tomorrow functions better today, that the brain which is oriented towards something specific and real and personally meaningful preserves itself more effectively than the brain that has been left to drift without anchor or direction. After 70, this ability is not a given. It requires protection. The things that provided purpose during the working years, the role, the routine, the rhythm of professional life, they end. The children who needed raising have been raised. The career that organized the days has concluded, and in the space that opens, many people find not freedom, but emptiness, not peace, but purposelessness. And purposelessness, the research makes clear, is not a benign condition. It is a physiological one. A body that has nothing specific to do tomorrow ages faster than a body that does. Henry was 77. He came to see me 18 months after retiring from 42 years as a civil engineer. He sat down and said, "Doctor, I do not know what to do with myself. I wake up and the day is just there." He looked at the floor. "I used to be essential. Now I am just here." I asked him what he had loved about his work beyond the technical problems. He said, "I loved that what I built was still standing after I left, that it mattered past the day I made it." I suggested he find that same quality somewhere else. He looked skeptical. "I am not a young man, doctor." I told him that what he wanted was not a young man's requirement. It was a human one. Henry started volunteering at a local high school, teaching basic structural engineering principles to students interested in construction. He went twice a week. 6 months later, he walked into my office looking like a man who had found something he thought was gone forever. "Doctor," he said, "last Thursday a student told me she wants to become an engineer because of what I showed her." He stopped and looked at me with the particular brightness of someone who has rediscovered that they matter. I told her she would be a good one. He paused. "I believe she will be. I think I helped make that possible. That is purpose. Not grand, not headline-worthy. A conversation between a 77-year-old man and a young woman about the physics of load-bearing walls, and the certainty, sitting in my office 6 months later, that it had mattered. That he had mattered. That he still did. Miriam came back to see me 6 months after that first appointment. The woman who had walked in and asked what she needed to protect. The one who had made me stop and pay attention before she had said a single word. I told her she had been protecting 5 things. She had come back to tell me how she had been doing it. She was walking at threshold pace every morning before breakfast. She had added eyes-closed balance training while she waited for her coffee to brew each morning. She had started a weekly Pilates class that included floor-to-standing sequences. She had enrolled in a watercolor course at the community center, and she had joined a reading group that met Thursday evenings and discussed books she would never have chosen on her own, which was exactly the point. She sat across from me and Miriam said, "Doctor, I feel more like myself than I have in 20 years. I asked her what she thought had changed. She looked at me for a moment with the quiet confidence of someone who has found the right answer after a long search. She said, "Nothing changed. I just stopped letting things slip without noticing. That is what a rare gem does. Not the exceptional person who started with unusual gifts or extraordinary circumstances. The ordinary person who paid close attention, who noticed what was worth keeping, who did the work of keeping it before the loss made the work harder. You already know which of these 5 you need to protect most. You felt it when you read it. That feeling is the answer. Start there. Today. Art.